Hello, welcome to the Healthy Enterprise. If you're a new listener, thank you for joining us. And if you're a return listener, well, thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. My episode today, I'm going to be talking to Naomi Cosman. She's the head of global marketing and investor relations at Koning Corporation. Koning Corporation is revolutionizing breast imaging technology. This is going to be cool. You're going to want to hear this. So let's meet Naomi. Naomi, thank you for joining me today. Welcome to this episode. Looking forward to hearing about your role at Koning and your experience with marketing in this healthcare space. But maybe take this opportunity to sort of introduce yourself and explain to the listeners who you are and a little bit about Koning.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me on. Very excited to be here and to talk about Koning Health. I'm the head of marketing of Koning, and what Koning does is we are a manufacturer of the Koning Vera breast CT, basically a revolutionary device in the breast imaging space that allows for a woman to get a quicker, more dignified exam that showcases beautiful images in true 3D. And that's very different from how the industry is right now, because typically a woman who is 40 years old and older would go to get her mammogram, and mammogram compresses the breasts. Sometimes you need to take multiple images depending on the size, the density, and especially for women with dense breasts, it's not typically as clear of an image. So Koning came to be to answer this issue that has been in the industry for 60 plus years now, and to provide a 7-second exam that does not include any compression. So a woman goes in, she doesn't have to be touched or pulled or anything like that. It is all her. She puts herself on the device, kind of like a massage table, and she's in and out in a few minutes. And the images are beautiful and very readable for a radiologist. So we're excited to be expanding very quickly now and across the US, and we also have facilities around the world. So just trying to get the word out about Koning and let women know that there's something else out there that is available, and it's an option for breast imaging now.
That's amazing, because I mean, everything I've ever heard about it is that it's excruciating, well, painful
Yes.
as well. Plus, not a very comfortable experience.
Exactly.
And you have to do it through a primary care doctor traditionally, right? So is this something you don't do through your primary care doctor, or is it a facility that they go to?
Yeah, so it really depends. We are in clinics and privately held clinics. We're in hospitals as well. So any facility that's interested in the best of the best technology of today is able to get the device. Whether that's an aesthetic clinic, a breast surgery clinic, a gynecology clinic, a regular hospital. So it really depends. We'll talk to anybody who's interested, and it's really just about making this exam more accessible to women all over the country.
I mean, where do women get mammograms right now? Where is the most common place for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a gynecology clinic is probably the most common. Again, it depends. Big hospitals are definitely going to have mammograms,
Sure.
and ultrasounds, and MRIs, all of which are used for breast imaging. This device is a CT device, which typically people get scared of because they think, okay, CT, higher radiation. That's actually not true. So our device actually is the same radiation as a typical mammogram, and actually can be a little bit less because you only need one 360-degree image of the breast as opposed to a few different angles of a compressed breast. So it is not bad for you in any way. It is much more comfortable, and we're hearing only good things from women who get this exam.
Well, it certainly simplifies the process, and I mean, recommended mammograms are kind of an ongoing thing. What is the regular recommendation for how often that happens? Is it an annual thing for most women?
So if you're 40 years and older, it's recommended that you get an exam annually. That changes depending on your family history. If you have a history of breast cancer yourself, there's all these other factors. So if you have dense breasts, you might have to get it every 6 months. So it really depends, but at minimum every year. And we actually hear and see from statistics that half of the women that are supposed to be getting their annual exam don't. And that is largely due to the pain from compression. So, if we can avoid the compression, the pain, and the lack of dignity that women feel when they're getting this very important exam, then we can get more women checked and, make sure that a woman can live her best life without, cancer, breast cancer.
Right. And prevention is early detection is the
Yes.
key to
Yes.
breast cancer. My
Absolutely.
understanding is so the more barriers you can remove around getting that checkup done, the better for
Exactly.
everybody. Right.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is that? Well, tell me what attracted you to Koning. I mean, you've been a marketing specialist in
Mm-hmm.
the healthcare area for a while. I mean, you've
Mm-hmm.
done other things in
Yeah.
marketing, but what was it about Koning that attracted you to that company?
Yeah, I mean, I've been with Koning for about 4 years now. And, as a woman and, as somebody who knows people who have gone through breast cancer, I'm very passionate about it. And being able to make a difference in women's lives is very meaningful. And I saw an opportunity to be a part of a company that is really providing something that nobody else has out there, at least not FDA approved yet. And to be able to bring that to women and actually really truly make a difference is such a good feeling, and really the reason that I wake up every morning and am happy to do my job.
So the response must be amazing. You must like when you first introduce this to somebody, or they first hear of it, or test it out. You
Novel.
must get an interesting response from people. Like, where has this been? Like,
Yes.
why did it take so long? How many 60 years? You said something
Yeah, about 60.
like how long? Why did it take 60 years? I heard
Yeah.
somebody say something about yeah, it was probably a man that designed the mammogram.
Exactly. I hear that all the time. And as soon as I tell people, like as soon as I told my mom that I was working for this company, or like any of my family members, any friends, they are all like, okay, first of all, where can I get this? And second of all, why did it take so long? Third of all,
Yeah.
it was definitely a man who invented the mammogram machine. Everything that you just listed is 100% what I hear. But for the most part, it's all just about, they're excited that this exists now. And it again, like I said, it's just about being able to get it out to more women so that there isn't the issue of, low compliance rates and, missing breast cancer and that kind of thing.
If there's any sort of pushback, is it just that it's maybe just not really believing that it could be any different? You find if is there any kind of pushback from that?
Well, the only back that we really get is from the industry. And that's really the unfortunate part about being in a company that is revolutionary like this. It is an industry that doesn't change very quickly. So when I first started, luckily it's not like this now, but when I first started, there were so many naysayers. It was, too experimental. We've never done like CT with breast before, XYZ, all these excuses, really. Of
Right.
course, mostly coming from men, I will say.
Right.
I'm not bitter at all, but it's just over the years we have seen that there's been more growth towards this mindset of, okay, maybe there are other ways that we can go about imaging women's breasts that are just as good or better. Maybe they don't need supplementary imaging, like if you have dense breasts, for example, my mother has dense breasts, she has to get both a mammogram and either an ultrasound or an MRI every single time that she goes. And that's ridiculous. Like it shouldn't be like that. It should be one and done. You got your images, you know whether or not you're healthy, and if you have to come back for a biopsy, you can get that done, which by the way, our device also allows for biopsy in one device. So it's a
Oh,
win-win for
really?
everybody. It's a win-win for the patients and also for the physicians who don't have to buy multiple devices to get the same result.
So the device does biopsies as well?
It does, yes. Basically, the
Wow.
way that it usually I have the background of the of the device, but the device looks like a very big massage table. Let's just put it that way, so you can vision it.
Oh, okay.
And then
Okay.
it raises up, and the doors open, and the doctor can right there, do the biopsy on the table without the woman moving at all to a different room or anything like that. And the process is much quicker. Like there's, I think, 15 minutes in and out. and she's done, and she'll have her results as quick as the physician can read them. And it's really a game changer. So
Yeah, it sounds like it. And so now you're not getting the resistance you had before. It's lightening up a bit,
right.
and
Yes.
and it's being adopted. How long has it actually been in the market?
So we've been in the market. The company has been around for about 20 years, but most of that was doing R&D, making sure that we got our FDA approval. So we are now FDA approved for diagnostic use. And then starting the real like commercial part of building the company out, and that's when I was brought on to do the marketing and help with sales. But yeah, like I said, we go to conferences every year that are very industry focused. And
Right.
when the first conference that I ever went to a few years ago, like I said, it was all naysayers. Like, it's too early for this. We're fine with the mammograms the way they are. And then as of this year, it's more, they're just asking questions about like, well, okay, like how does this part work, and how can I read this image? And it very much more specific, targeted questions that are leading to the right result, which is them accepting the technology as a good, hopeful replacement for mammograms in the future. Right now, obviously, they're not a replacement, but that is the goal eventually.
Right. Right. Uh, if if there was a date that would happen, how long do you think it's going to take?
Oh, many years, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but because there
Yeah.
are the big, I won't say any names, but there's big, big players in the industry who, have, I would say, a monopoly on it, on mammogram devices, ultrasound. So we are a very small fish in a very large pond, and we're just trying to work our way up to that. So can't say for certain, but it's not next year. I can tell you that.
Yeah, and I suppose that's kind of one of the obstacles, when you enter a market that has, very rooted systems or habits, or however you want to look at it,
Mhm.
really rooted in historical decision making
Yeah.
and organizations and investment, right?
Yes.
So what how from a marketer's perspective, how do you break through? Is it truly an education process for
Yeah.
people?
I mean, that's basically the main part of my job, was educating people. So, and that comes from, both educating patients and actually just letting them know that this exists. And then the physician side of things, showing them case studies and, the statistics and, the technical aspects that, they're used to reading, everything, every little detail, because radiologists are very specific in their questions and in their concerns. If we can
Right.
answer all of those questions and concerns, then we can have a real dialogue. So it's an uphill battle, but again, seeing progress. So I think we're getting to the right place and having the right conversations, and just very excited that it's finally gotten to people's attention enough that they're willing to be like, okay, let me sit down and have a conversation with you and see what's so special about this.
Who were the early adopters of this? Like who embraced it first?
Yeah. Yeah. So our first clinic was actually in Tennessee. They actually got their second device recently. So big fans of theirs. And then we are based down in Atlanta, Georgia. So we have several hospitals and clinics in that area that have been quicker to adopt. And, slowly working our way to the big metropolitan areas. We're doing an installation in Chicago this week, actually, which I'm very excited about because that's where I'm from.
Wow.
New York City, LA, we're finally getting to those big areas, those big hubs where, women can fly in, or they can, drive in. So they're the closest city to them, and get an exam. And that's really exciting.
What's the potential of like mobile units?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Is that an option?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have our own mobile unit that's based at our office in Atlanta. For those, we work with usually like big enterprises will do scan days for their employees, which have been a really great success
Wow.
also. So that's kind of a faster way to get some adoption in certain areas, because employees see this as a huge benefit that, they obviously, big companies are paying for the healthcare of their employees. They see
Yeah.
this as a way, like a preventative way of helping women, and they bring our mobile to their company and do a few scan days. And we really love that. We hear really great things from both the companies and the women that get to do it. The women are grateful to their companies for providing it. So yeah, mobile is definitely a thing. We have there is an organization out in California as well that just did their own mobile with our device. So it is definitely movable. It's not as common right now, but one day we'll be doing cross country mobile tours just like the other companies and bringing this to more women everywhere.
Well, I mean, and certainly an opportunity to bring it to more underdeveloped nations
Yeah,
too, right?
sure.
Where this is an issue
For sure.
there too. It's not just in wealthy countries; it's in every country in the world. So that's the
Absolutely.
kind of thing that would really get that kind of accessibility to those people.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
And rural where there are
Yep.
not a lot of not a major centers where there's
Yep.
medical clinics and
Yep.
hospitals that people can access to. That's really interesting that
Yeah.
you could be taken on the road like that. So tell me a little bit about the technology in there. Like, what is it? You said it's a CT, like compared it to a CT scan, but it's not the same intensity.
Right. So yes, so it's computed tomography, CT. But I think the thing that scares people away is that CT is usually done for whole body or bigger body parts. This is very specifically focused on the breast. So the radiation is targeting one specific area, just like a mammogram. It's not any more radiation than you would get from taking a cross country flight, truly.
Right.
So that's not anything to be feared. And, the special thing about our technology, one thing that really differentiates us is the lack of compression. So, we use gravity as a way to be able to see everything that is in the breast. The woman lies flat and the breast falls into a hole. And that's how we get the 360-degree image of each of the breasts. It's one breast at a
Oh,
time. So
interesting.
that's
Wow.
extremely
Okay.
different because, mammogram devices, a woman is usually standing. There's two big paddles that she has to, place her breast on, and then and and it's a lot of weight. It's very painful. And
Yeah.
the thing that I think is the most funny, especially as a marketer, is the way that other companies get around that is by saying, oh, we have this new, a better way of compression. You get to do it now. As a woman, you get to do the compression. And my response to that is, well, why would I want to do that at all? I would rather not
Yeah.
have any, not just, do it to myself. Why would I put myself through that?
Exactly.
And I will, there's an asterisk to this because I don't want to prevent any woman from getting their annual mammograms. They should absolutely do
No.
that. Getting your screening, getting your diagnostic exam, doing the whole 9 yards is very, very important to your holistic health as a woman. But we are trying to provide an alternative to that. So that is what my job is to make women
That's
know
right.
that's there.
That's right. Change the messaging and get that out there.
Exactly.
So tell me about that a little bit. How do you, obviously it's women, but how do you target your audiences? And I guess there's two ways. I mean, the women who need mammograms are kind of like the end user,
Uh-huh.
but
Yes.
in between there, you have all these providers, right?
Yes.
So do you do both? Is it kind of a full circle marketing approach and
Yeah,
messaging
yeah. I
approach?
would say it's a full circle. It's fun because there's a few different ways that you can skin the cat, so to speak. There's you when I first started, we were heavily targeting women. We were just getting it was all about brand awareness. Like, hey, we exist. This exists. There's another option. We over the past few years, my social media team has done an amazing job getting our name out there, and we've gone viral multiple times, more than I can count, millions and millions of views, and have
Wow.
tens of thousands of followers now on our channels. And so, from a patient perspective, we definitely are succeeding. Women are taking to our messaging. They see that this is an option, they get excited about it, and then they start telling people about it. Interestingly enough, what I've heard at conferences is that some of the physicians that come to our booth to see our device are told by their patients that this
Right.
exists. And so that's a really interesting way of going about it. You go through the patient to get to the physician.
Right.
Obviously, we do it the other way around too. We go straight to the physician, and our president, our head of sales, are very well connected in the industry, have a lot of experience in the industry. So it's about like conversations and building that network of physicians specifically. Then you get the
Right.
physicians on board. We have an amazing scientific advisory board team who help spread the word in their circles. And that can be done, just word of mouth. It can be done on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really big for us in terms of the actual clinical side of things. So yeah, it's, full circle, but also, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And
Yeah.
as a younger company that's, newer to the industry, I think we have a little bit more freedom to do those kinds of things and to play around with our marketing message than a huge company that has been around for hundreds of years and have tens of thousands of employees and a very specific way of doing things. And that's another exciting thing about my job.
Right. No kidding. I mean, it's a serious conversation, but are you able to throw some humor at that?
Yeah, I
Are you?
mean, there's
What was
definitely
what went viral? Was it something that was humorous, or was it what was it that went viral?
interestingly enough, what really resonates with our followers is real women getting an exam, and that's not surprising. They want to know, okay, so you could promote any kind of product, but if you don't see anyone using it, is it real? Like, does it actually work?
Right.
But having the patient to patient communication is really strong. So they see a woman getting on the device and talking about their experience. That is so invaluable to us. And yeah, of course, you can throw some humor into that. And
Sure.
I think women appreciate that. It's a heavy topic sometimes, but
Yeah.
a little levity can go a long way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like little scenarios where you've got, someone lying down and whatever, cucumbers on her eyes, is like, I'm having my mammogram right now.
Exactly. That's the imagery that we want to promote 100%.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure there'd be some fun ways you could probably pull that off. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. I might use
I
that.
love you can have it. That's yours.
Thank you. Thanks. I'll credit you.
Okay, no problem. Um, I love the idea of the corporate involvement.
Mhm.
Where employers can do this for
Yeah.
their staff. Like
Yeah.
what a great tool. I mean,
Well,
it's you're giving a lot. I mean, particularly if you have a high demographic employment base,
mhm.
that's female. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really that would be a really great culture boost,
I think
right?
so
That
too.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked in very large companies as well. And I remember, we had benefits for, like if you work out every week or something, like if you
Yeah.
don't smoke, they have little things that they do to make health fun.
Yeah.
And I think it just like, it speaks to, the company and how they care about their employees. And especially, as a woman and somebody who might have to go through 1 in 8 women get diagnosed with breast cancer. That is a lot
Yeah.
of women.
That's a lot.
So if a company can, show that they care and that they want to prevent that from happening to their employees, that goes a long way. There's loyalty involved in that. There's
Yeah.
a lot of benefits to the company for providing this to their employees for sure.
It could be the thing that makes a person decide to go work for that company
Absolutely.
as opposed to that company.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
in a world of, employment retention, which
Mhm.
is difficult right now, it's a great tool for that. Absolutely.
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 I mean, my
Oh,
dream
that's really
scenario
cool.
would be that every company in the US provides
Yeah.
this as an employee benefit, and hopefully we'll get there one day. That's
Yeah.
not it's not impossible.
How about the insurance companies? Are they getting on board?
Yeah, that's a long conversation, but I would say slowly, slowly, slowly.
Slowly.
That is
Yeah.
another uphill battle. We do have a few insurance companies that have gotten on board specifically in Atlanta, in the Atlantic area. Those are very specific conversations that need to be had. Usually, there's lobbying involved. We have to get we try to go through politicians. There's a lot of intricacies with that. So right now, there's more cash pay options for clinics and for patients to get this done than insurance coverage. But
Right.
that's not to say that it won't come, in the very, very near future. And it really just depends on the clinic or the hospital, how close are they with their insurance providers? Do
Right.
they have those conversations? We help with a little bit of the heavy lifting, but it's really up to the clinic to be able to, connect with their insurance providers.
If somebody is going direct pay and they're paying for it themselves, what is the cost of an exam?
I mean, it varies. It really varies. It depends
Oh, okay.
on the city and the state,
Right.
so we've seen everywhere from $350 to $1,500. And it's, we leave that up to the clinic to decide.
Sure. Yeah. They set their own rates.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, still, I mean, reasonable if you think about this as
for
an
sure.
annual checkup that
For
has to be
sure.
done. But it'd be nice if insurance companies started getting on board. I mean, I have heard a lot about the potential for insurance companies to be, rewarding customers with prevention
Absolutely.
habits and things like that. So,
Yeah, it works in
I
their
think,
favor, really, for sure. But
yeah, I think it's coming.
women, we've also seen that women are very willing to pay for this. My
Yeah.
best case scenario would be that they don't have to, obviously. But
Yeah.
from surveys and conversations that we've had, there's definitely a willingness to pay. And that's, you see that also in kind of trendy companies, startups. You'll see like these full body MRI companies that are charging $3,000 or $2,500 for these full body scans for peace of mind. A great messaging. I love their marketing. It's really brilliant.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, like some of these things should be covered by insurance. And, we are one of those. We are very aware of that. We are working as hard as we can to make sure it will be. But for now, it will be available in places for cash pay for the most part.
Tell me a little bit about Koning and the organization.
Mhm.
How a little bit about the leadership and what Koning is like as far
Yeah.
as an employer and
For sure, yeah. It's I would say a small, lean, mean team. We do a lot with a small amount of people, all brilliant, all dedicated, and all very passionate about what our mission is. We were started up in University of Rochester, and our founder was actually Chinese. And interestingly enough, that community tends to have very small, dense breasts. So he saw a need to be able to answer that, like, um, respond to that issue, basically. And obviously, there's reason to use this for women everywhere, regardless of whether you're small, dense, or not. But that's where we were born about 20 or so years ago. Then we expanded out into our own company. And since then, management is including, we have people who've worked for big consulting firms, people who've worked in the actual industry. We have, people like me who've been across the board in all kinds of industries.
right.
It really is just people who believe in it and want to make a difference. And, and that's all that you really need, I think, is just the drive, the passion, the belief in the product. And, we've seen success so far, and I'm sure it will keep going this direction.
And he may actually shift that whole previous conversation about it was designed by a man. He'll
Right?
actually like shift that, turn it over on itself, right? You're
Yeah.
like, hey, it was designed by a man after
Yeah,
all.
yeah. Well, thank
He
you to
did a
this specific man for inventing something that's actually like that a woman
wow,
actually want
congratulations.
to get. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. So you've been in the you've worked in the healthcare world for a little bit longer. Have you done other healthcare marketing in the past prior to Koning?
Just not really. So more so like pre-revenue startups, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm very passionate about startups. I love everything about it. There's the chaos and there's the beauty and there's the responsibility, and it's always a lot of fun. There's never a dull moment. But as far as meaningful healthcare change, Koning is it really. And it's where I found my true passion. Like, love startups, but I also really love healthcare startups and being able to make that difference. And for such a small team, it's I think, pretty amazing how much of a difference we've already made. Being able to sell a decent amount of these devices and more coming very soon, and then that equates to X amount more women getting their exams and finding their cancers early and that kind of thing, preventing cancers. So this is where I want to be. I love being in this space specifically. helping women, and for a small scrappy team that is just very passionate, it means a lot.
If you're speaking to other marketers like yourself,
Mm-hmm.
either entering this, fresh out of school, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe transitioning, what would advice would you give them about working with a startup? Maybe not specifically healthcare, but as a marketer in startup, what were some of the tricks and tools that you use to kind of do your job?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just get ready. Like, get ready for everything that can possibly be thrown your way. I would say, if you have the drive, if you want to have a lot of responsibility, then you'll succeed. And I think one of the fun things, having worked in both corporate and startups, I appreciate startups because you really can have your hands in everything. Like, I have conversations with our engineers, and then our clinical side of things. So I get to see everything from a very holistic perspective. And for a marketing person, that's important to be able to see holistically and do your job well. You need to know all the little details. Maybe it's the micromanager in me, like just wanting to know everything, but it actually really helps do the job well. So if you're just starting out, if you're interested in healthcare, I would say, connect with people in the industry, ask to just have a friendly conversation, see if you can intern, and find your passion, because you will do well, you will succeed if you know what you love, and if you can be lucky enough to find a company that you admire in that way, then you're set for life, I think.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
That's really good. Do you find marketing is sort of, how traditionally marketing had you had a marketing department, and it was
Right.
either internal or it was an outsourced department, an
Mhm.
agency of some sort. Do you find that marketing now, because you've come into the marketing in a younger generation, do you see marketing as being more infused almost through the entire company, like the conversations of marketing and messaging and PR and communications? Is it happening in every department as opposed to just being siloed into, oh, those are the marketing people?
Right.
What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I would say I wish that was the case. Again, working in a corporate setting, you see it very siloed, and it is very much, the people on the top are filtering the message down. Things get lost in translation. I think it's a lot more difficult to work in that way because, like, the marketing people, the people who are really doing the work on the ground, are not fully aware of what's going on. Than in a startup, and again, it's not every startup, but in a startup, if you have the ability to be involved in more aspects of the company, like I said, you can do your job better. But I think you can also place yourself in a manner that the rest of the company understands that, like, you do need to be aware of things that are going on. And I've had these conversations with our sales team as well. We want to be involved in the decision making process when it comes to every little detail that's changed about our device, so that we can be in the know, we can have those conversations, we can understand the messaging that needs to go out there. Because if you can imagine, these changes could be made and our team might not be aware. And then, like, how are we supposed to go out and actually message appropriately? Or, like, how can the sales team go out and sell new features if they don't even know that it exists? So I think there's a little bit of both depending on where you are. I'm sure it varies across industries as well. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've been in the workforce for almost 15 years now, so it's you know there's been change, and of course with that, there's new social media platforms. There's all these new things that we have to stay on top of. But as far as generally speaking, I think the best way that you can go about it, the best way that companies can go about it, is to make sure that the marketing team is involved in all the conversations, if for only the reason that they see what's going on and can, then relay back out to people that are following the company.
Right. Well, I mean, if you think about all the different ways that messaging leaks out from a company, from a
Yeah.
brand, I
Yeah.
mean, you've got your products, your product messaging, you're selling, launching products at trade shows, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
But you also have, um, executives who have LinkedIn channels,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And what they do and say man
Yeah, absolutely.
means something too. You've got staff who have social media accounts and their company name is attached to that.
For
And
sure.
so you've also got corporate culture, which is about communicating and
Yeah.
recruitment and
Mhm.
about retention and about, so I don't know that now it seems like, messaging and communications and marketing and
Mhm.
how the brand is represented
Yes.
by an entire organization and all its people,
Yes.
it happens all the time in
Absolutely.
multiple channels at multiple layers. And
Right.
if it's not an infused, system
Mhm.
that everyone's somewhat aware of
Yes.
and in not in control of, but that it's almost congruent or consistent with everyone's place in the company,
Yeah.
there's opportunities for there could be missed opportunities, but
Yes.
also mishaps in opportunities, right?
Absolutely. And I'll actually, I want to add to that as far as especially, management leaders in the company speaking about their own product. Thought leadership is extremely important. And especially in the healthcare industry, people want to read and, hear from people that are experts in the field. So, if management isn't involved in those conversations, there's going to be some kind of disconnect or a lack of trust. So, employees should do their best to be a vehicle for the company, for the messaging. And that could mean, sharing on their social media channels. It could mean going individually to conferences or sitting on panels and having discussions in that way, and networking generally. All of that is extremely important and
Yeah.
creates this holistic marketing picture and strategy that, can help a company succeed.
Yeah, I guess you're also kind of from a messaging perspective, you're all kind of also balancing how much technology you're talking about with the fact that this is a human contact
Mhm.
device, right?
Yeah.
So you're speaking on one hand, talking to physicians who they love medical talk,
Mhm.
and but you're also reaching out to individuals
Yeah.
themselves who
Yeah.
have to have the treatment done.
For sure.
So how do you balance those messages?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, people that are familiar with marketing will probably roll their eyes and, nod and be like, obviously. But, knowing your personas is the important thing. So, who is it that you are targeting? And, I would say, some companies might only have one, and that's great. That's simple, very easy and focused. For a company like ours, it means, like we were talking about previously, targeting our patients. Patient advocacy is big, and then targeting the physicians. And, there's also an investor aspect to that too. We are a new company, we're a startup, we are, fundraising, and we're trying to get our name out there. And with that, is cost. So having messaging related to the investors and why this is beneficial to them is important as well. That's three ways of messaging that are completely different. And, the way that we speak to them is different too. The vehicles that we use, the information that we provide, the messaging specifically is going to be different across the board. You just can't overlap those, So for the physicians, they're going to want to know about the technology. They're going to want to know about throughput. How does this help their business succeed? The investors are going to want to know about ROI and, like, is this actually going to make them money? And patients want to know that this is going to save their life or somebody that they
Yeah.
care about, that this is, a good enough technology that they can trust their family and friends and themselves to go on this device and get a good image of their breast. So, again, all about different messaging, just being very aware of that, honing in on that too. But then, you can do some testing, A/B testing, see what works, see what doesn't, and, then specify a little bit more. And it's an iterative process, really.
Back to what you were talking about was thought leadership, and my experience with the podcast is that I would say probably 50% of the people I interview are founders and CEOs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're the people they're and that's who you're talking about. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the people that are able to talk passionately
For
about
sure.
what they do
Yep.
because they're the founder, but also talk from a leadership persona
Definitely.
as a CEO. And you got that's really two different messaging too.
It really
A
is.
CEO is speaking to investors and everything else, whereas the founder is really the passion behind the vision, right? So that's what I was going to say, was that I find that as well. It was an agreement with what you said earlier. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
It takes
100%.
finesse to be able to jump back and forth,
Yeah, it's like, turning the hat around, and now I'm this, and now I'm that. So yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting. Wow. So where can people find more information about Koning?
Yeah. So our website is koninghealth.com, and you can see information about the technology. There's papers that have been written about this technology, locations, and any specifics that you want, you can find there. You can also follow us on social media at Koning Health. And we talk about our new installations, what's coming up, what's just contact information for some of the clinics. And we like to be partnered with our clinics. We really do try to help them with their marketing as well. So you will definitely hear about any upcoming installation on our social media. We put out press releases, so you can keep an eye out for those. But yeah, just spread the word, please. And, let's get this to more women all over the country.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Naomi, so much for taking this time to sit with me today and share with me your experience and talk about Koning. Any last thoughts or anything you want to leave behind before we say goodbye?
No, just very happy to be here and to talk about something that I'm very passionate about, that I know a lot of women and people generally are very passionate about, and to just spread the word about Koning, and hopefully we can make a difference.
You are already making a difference. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Appreciate that. Okay. Thanks, Naomi.
Thanks so much.
This is very important. Breast cancer affects so many people worldwide. 1 in 8, I believe Naomi said. So important to get the word out there. I really enjoyed listening to Naomi and her insight on marketing, and that one of the key takeaways from what she said was that it needs to be integrated across all departments in organizations, and that thought leadership is crucial in healthcare industry for marketing and education purposes. So anyway, great episode again. Thank you to Naomi, and thank you to you for listening, and be healthy, and we'll talk again soon.